Hello and welcome back to the fourth episode in the How to Play Paragon tutorial series. Today we're going to be looking at cards and decks, but we're going to be revisiting what we looked at before, but adding a bit more depth into our knowledge. So to get started, you may have noticed when looking at heroes that there are these little portraits that show you things like Fury and Intellect. Those are affinities, which means the kind of cards that each hero can use. Some, like Twin Blast, are only mono affinity, so they can only use one kind of affinity cards, although this does not make the hero weaker in any case. If you've not done so already, you're probably wondering, how do I create a deck? Well, what you have to do is go to Profile, go to Decks, you have to have a free slot available to do this, then click New Deck, select the hero that you want to create a deck for. I'm going to pick Iggy and Scorch. Then you can either choose the starter deck cards or just create one completely fresh, which is what I'm going to do. And then what you want to go ahead and do is you want to choose one of the prime cards. What this corresponds to is when your team scores the prime buff off the big purple monster in the middle of the map, you get the buff from these cards. You can only choose one of them. And as Iggy and Scorch is a energy hero, I'm going to go ahead and pick the Archmage's card. And once you've done that, this screen will appear. And as you can see, you have a 1 out of 40 now. That's 1 out of 40 cards. You can only have 40 cards in a deck, so you have to be careful what you're picking. You need to think about what cards you want in that deck. As you progress through the game, you'll probably have more than one deck per character, so be prepared for different builds. Also, just linking back to the affinities thing again, just in case anyone was wondering, these are red for Fury and these are purple for Corruption. And if you've probably already noticed, there are some silver cards in here which are universal affinity, which means they are available on every hero. It's just so they didn't have to replicate loads of different similar cards for no reason. Might as well just have a few that can be available for all. So hope that clears that up. Now, as we've talked about previously, there are two kinds of cards in Paragon. There are equipment cards, which are these, and then there are upgrade cards, although you need to have equipment cards to use upgrade cards. So for my first card on Iggy, I'm going to want to pick something energy, because of the fact that he does energy damage. So I'm going to go ahead and filter it, which you can do here for any attribute. So I'm going to go here and click energy damage, and then I'm going to want to pick something that will help me early game. And Staff of the Adamant is pretty good for that, although you have to fill the 3 little slots there with upgrades to get the fully upgraded bonus of 15.2 energy damage. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to link the upgrades which I feel help. And early game you're probably going to want to go with 2-point cards to give you a buff from the fully upgraded bonus. And I'm going to give myself a little bit of leeway here by putting on 3 cast 2-pointers and then putting on a health 2-pointer, so that if I do need the extra health, I've got the option there to just add it on and, you know, help me out a little bit early game. So now here on the left hand side you can see the card that I've added, the equipment card, and all the little upgrades underneath it. You can also hover over it and it'll show you all the things that you've linked. I would also like to reiterate the importance of the type of upgrades that you're putting onto these cards. Just to go look back at the Staff of the Adamant, you can see here that I chose these because it helps me early game. The buff from the fully upgraded bonus really is the same cost as a 2-point card. So by getting this early, you're giving yourself another 2 points basically. If you were to go ahead and choose the major casts, instead of taking 3 levels to fully upgrade this card, it would take 4. And to get the extra level would take you a lot longer and would be harder because the bonus from this would help you farm. So really you're putting your farming behind by not choosing the right upgrades for that situation. Late game you can get 3-point upgrades, but really you should only do that once you've got the power to farm quicker. And one thing I'd like to talk about quickly is just make sure you choose the right kind of cards for that hero. The amount of people that I've seen go straight for damage in game as well. Make sure you have a health potion and a mana potion in your deck at the very least. Depending on your playstyle, you could use a scout ward to be able to make sure no one's coming up to gank you if you're playing by yourself. And definitely if you're going to be one of the people putting down harvesters, make sure you have a key of some sort. It will help so much to win you the game. And what I mean by the right cards is, you're playing Iggy and Scorch for example, and he's really basically about the energy damage and putting a load of damage onto his turrets and all of his other abilities. There's no point in going and looking for health and getting tempered plates and tuned barriers. I mean, in situations, yeah, they would help, don't get me wrong. In some situations that would be appropriate, but for the majority of situations you're going to want to be an AoE mage with the turrets and all the rest of it. You're not going to want these items the majority of the time. You can put them in, don't get me wrong, you can put them in your deck, that's fine. But most of the time, you're going to want energy pen and energy damage, with a bit of HP mixed in there and a couple of nice little active cards. And now for the next step of deck building, which is to make it to 60 points. And those 60 points correlate to the 60 card points which you'll get in a game. And at the moment that's arguably the hardest part of deck building because we don't have a little calculator to do it for us. Eventually they will add one in probably, but at the moment there isn't one. I've gone ahead here and just added 6 random cards of no real importance just to show. There's 6 cards here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they all cost 3. But if I use the Staff of the Adamant as an example, as you can see here that costs 3 and the upgrades would cost 6 altogether, making it 9. So my first full card has only cost me 9 points out of 60, which is actually pretty cheap. And you'd probably want to do another 3-point card with another lot of 2 and then start working your way up to more expensive upgrades. Or another strategy you can do is add really cheap cards and build up really cheap cards the entire way through the game, and then if the game lasts longer than you expected, you have other cards in your deck that you can use that are more expensive that you can add in later. Because as you discard a card in game, you get those points back to use on another card, but you just can't get that other card back for the rest of the game, it's gone. And my final piece of advice for deck building is do not be afraid to add more cards. You can always take them out again, but just don't be afraid to put in more cards that are more expensive. They can be there just as really more of a change of pace. If you're in a really kill heavy game, for example, a Necro Veil could be really useful because once you get a kill, you go into the shadow plane for 3 seconds. That's a really cool card. I enjoy using it on Iggy and Scotch because people can't tell where you've gone, they don't know where you're going to put your next turret down, and it really just helps. And just remember that your deck's not going to be perfect the first time you use it, and that's completely fine. You have times to go back and change it, edit and improve. Anyway, I hope this really helped you because I got a lot of questions and feedback from my last video on cards and decks, and I really thought about putting more information into this one because it should help you a lot. If you like this video, give it a like. If you dislike this video, give it a dislike. My Twitter and Facebook are in the link in the description, and I hope to see you in the arena.